Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Awaken the World. Today we present Understanding Time, Duality, Relativity, and the Absolute. Hello, everyone. Well, you know, I probably don't need any introduction anymore, but just to make sure, my name is Garhen, and we are here for Awaken the World to talk about some really interesting subjects that people really struggle to understand, and it's perfectly okay. They seem really complicated on the surface, and our job is going to be to make them a lot simpler. And we're going to give a minute or two to see if some people come online. As I said, when we're on the Facebook, our comments are not on the screen, and I have to kind of glance off to the side every once in a while. But I do try to get to them. And you know, the one thing I may not have done is share this video onto the group page. So if I didn't, it will appear on the group page after. For sure it is on the Awaken the World page. So we're just going to give that a double check and see what we can do with that. That looks good. Okay, so first one. First one is time, and time is a big one because, of course, you know, we as human beings are in this flow of time. And what is time, really? I mean, time is an arbitrary movement, okay? And it's movement's not even the correct real term for it, but it's an arbitrary measure of, you know, the space between things. And that's really how we do it. And we talk in terms of light years, in the distance that light travels in a year, about 186,000 miles per second. Okay, you think about those distances. The Earth is roughly 25,000 kilometers, so I don't know, 18,000 miles in diameter. But we're talking 186,000 miles in 1 second. And what we did as human beings over time is we noticed that the Earth revolved around the sun. Okay, the sun rose and the sun set. So we ended up calling the duration between the time the sun rose the first time and the time the sun rose the next time 1 day. And then we divided the day down into arbitrary units. We call those units hours, years, seconds, months, days. Right? These are these arbitrary units, and they're all based upon this concept of our planet spinning around the sun. But it's completely arbitrary. Now, here's the interesting thing about time. Time is totally dependent on the observer. And therefore, it is forever linked to light and the speed of light. So, and we're slipping a little bit into relativity here, but they really do come together on this, okay? So, here's the trick. If you were to be on a train, and that train was moving at 1,000 miles per hour. Kimberly's here. Hello, Kimberly. I think this is the first time we've seen you here. On one of the live ones. So happy to have you. So we are on this train, and this train is moving at 1,000 miles an hour. And we're going to use miles because, you know, even if you're metric like we are, you can still understand miles. Very fast. And as you're moving on that train, you witness somebody throwing a ball who's standing still beside the train. And let's say that person is throwing the ball at 500 miles an hour. To you, that ball is still going to appear to be going backwards. It's not going to catch the train. It will leave the person's hand as you whip by, and you would have to have amazing vision to catch it. But the perception of time is actually different because of the speed of the individual. So the faster you go, the slower time becomes. And the faster you go, the faster we get towards the speed of light, the heavier things become. And this is true even on our planetary surface up to where our astronauts stay on the space station in space. They operate on a totally different time because time runs differently thanks to gravity. Gravity wells all through the universe. Every planet, every galaxy, every black hole, every photon star, every neutron star. All of these celestial objects are like pools that influence time, that pull at time and twist time. Veronica's also here. Oh, a bit of a time difference. Yeah, exactly. Good to see you, Veronica. So when we're speaking about time, what we really need to understand that, and I have a background as a scientist as well, so I can, end up getting caught, as we did a little bit in the discussion on CERN and particle physics. We can go a little too deep sometimes, so I'm trying to keep it back out in the open and really to share the mystery and the beauty of all these things without us getting caught up in them, okay? So time has no tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. We'd really like to believe it. We really would. And as I said, if you have a watch, and I had a watch, I don't know where it went. Here it is. So if you have a watch here in your hand, right? And, I have an old-fashioned face watch because I'm sort of an old-fashioned guy. And it's funny. There's a lot of kids these days who can't actually read an analog watch. They really can't. It's hilarious. They've been brought up in a digital age and they have no concept of this. I have a contagious laugh. Yeah. Some say I may even be a virus. So, according to this watch I'm wearing, time flows in these neat little increments of seconds. And then 60 of those seconds will go by, and then 1 hour has occurred. And then 24 of those hours will go by, and 1 day has occurred. But that only stays true as long as we're standing here on the surface and we accept it. And we have all had experiences, and this is why time is linked to light on not only a physics level, but also a spiritual level, a consciousness level, okay? But we have all experienced time slowing down or speeding up. And we can ask ourselves, is it our perception? And of course, we always answer, well, yes, it is our perception, because when I come back to Earth or I come out of that event, my watch says that this is the time now, and that's the same time that everyone else has. So even though I felt like I've been gone for hours, minutes have only passed. So therefore, my perceptions are incorrect. It must be only minutes. Sounds cute, but it's not the truth. And I'll give you an example. If you live down in the United States, you have a number of what are called geographical vortices of energy hotspots. And there is one of them right down there in Arizona that you can go and visit. And here's the funny thing. You're walking uphill to get to this place, because it's up amongst some cliffs and canyons, and I'm going to do a post about it. And I went there myself, and I'll give you guys the name of the place, and hopefully some of you can go visit it this summer. But here's the interesting thing. It takes you far longer to walk back from the place than it does to actually get there. Or, sorry, I mixed that up. It's the other way around. When you go to get to the site, it takes a really long time to walk there. A really long time. About 2 hours of walking. And yet when you leave the site, it feels like no more than 15 minutes. And I have heard that, I experienced this firsthand. I witnessed person after person after person coming back from this energy vortex and from the experience of that vortex and report the same thing, that time did not function quite properly when they were done, when they came out of the vortices. It took a couple hours, literally almost till the time he came back, for time to calm down again and run at a normal speed. And these are all words we're trying to use to describe what's really happening. You know, we are these infinitely powerful spiritual beings, and we literally have the ability to stop time in our relative world. We also have the ability to speed time up. And we can also slow it down. And we do most of that unconsciously, but we actually have the ability to prolong moments for ourselves, to hold up the rest of creation so that we can have our attention on this beautiful thing that we're looking at for a little bit extra time. And we, as these powerful spiritual beings, are doing this every day. You've had the experience where you are so engrossed in what you are doing that before you become aware of it, a vast amount of time has passed. Or you're in a situation where you have the weight of the world on your shoulders and you're waiting for a result or a test to come back or an answer, and time seems to move like a slug. Every second turns into an hour. Now, as I said, this is a hard thing to get by. Despite the fact that all of these may show the same time on the people wearing them, each person can experience the flow of time in their own unique and special way. And we see it happening right down into the animal kingdom, for example. Flies see in slow motion. That's why they can react so fast. They only really appear to act that fast. But the reason it's a hard thing to catch a fly, and personally, it's not hard to catch flies. But the reason they seem so quick is that they actually see in slow motion. You see, our eyes actually have a recycle time, and that recycle time of our eyes from one image to the next plays a great deal on our physical concept, our relative word concept of time. Because light and time cannot be separated. You know, one of the most famous thought experiments that you can think about, if you picture a clock, and keep in mind that light travels at a finite speed towards you from that clock. So if you're standing 50 feet away from the clock, and the clock says noon, well, in fact, when you see the clock time, it's a hair's breadth past noon. Because light has had to travel from the clock to your eyes. So where the clock says noon, hello Jeanette, nice to see you as well. So we have Jeanette, we have Kimberly, and we have Veronica. Great to see you all today. So even though the clock may say noon and be right on target, the further you move away from it, the longer it takes the light from the clock to reach you. So if the clock were where the sun is right now, the light from the sun takes 8 minutes to get to Earth. Therefore, we would see the clock strike noon 8 minutes after noon. Even though the clock says noon. And to the person standing on the sun, if they could survive the heat, they would see the clock strike noon 8 minutes before we did. You know, our dividing time up into these straight line segments from past to present to future, seconds after second after second, all the units the same size, that is completely arbitrary and it is completely false. You don't have to live under that enslavement. You really don't. And if we take this a step further, which we're going to in the next part, and we're going to see a little deeper still, we're actually going to talk about relativity next. You know, we were going to do duality first, but we're going to go into relativity because Kimberly says what? It's true. It's really hard to get it by your head, but the reality of it is this. Light travels at a finite speed. If it is 12 o'clock on the sun, we know it's 12 o'clock 8 minutes after, yet the clock will say 12 o'clock from our point of view. And time, as it turns out, is exactly that. It is a point of view. You see, the faster we move away from that clock, the longer it takes the light of that clock to catch up to us. So, for instance, in the theory of relativity, which we're going to talk about next, and we don't need to get too deep into this, okay? We're not going to. There's some very surface points that we need to grasp as it applies to our journey in consciousness, okay? But the faster you move towards the speed of light, time slows down more and more and more in your perception, because the light takes longer and longer and longer to catch up. So if you were moving at the speed of light, what would happen to time? Time would appear for you as the observer to stop completely, because the light from that clock back on planet Earth could never catch you to show the change in time. And I'm hoping that this makes sense, because this is really how time is. And the more you let go of this rigidity of time, the more you let go of the concept that time marches from past to present to future, and that whatever's come before you've lost forever, and whatever's in the future is beyond your sight. Well, kind of, exactly. Same sort of thing. You're moving back through the time zones, right? And you're always staying in the light. It's a similar sort of thing. You know, Kimberly asked the question, time would stop? And in your perception, for you, if you could move at the speed of light, time would stop. Completely. Because our measurement of time is arbitrary, and it requires us to notice the ticking hand on the watch. Or the big hands. Okay, but see, what we keep forgetting is that the light from this watch traveling into my eye takes time. Because there's distance between it. This is a lot to grasp. It's true. You know, you kind of got to open your head to the idea that it's okay to just explode, and you'll all come back together again, I promise. So because it takes time for the light to reach me, if I can move away from this watch, or send the watch, if I could put a telescope on it and send it off into space at the speed of light, this watch would always say 12 o'clock, because the light from it changing to 12:01 would never be able to get back to me, because the watch would be moving away at the same speed the light is coming. Therefore, time would stop. It would stand still. Now, the real question comes in, what happens if you could go past the speed of light? Would time reverse? And here's the thing. We don't do it physically, but we exceed the speed of light in every minute of every day. And there are only a few things in the universe that are faster than light. One of them is called particle entanglement. And we talked about that in the video on CERN. And if you haven't seen it, it's a great video. But there's another thing that's faster than light. I love those boom moments, Kimberly. Those are the best. We had one of those last night, too, on the video on the Help Awaken page. Boom! Consciousness expanded. Need more room in the universe for me again. So here's the thing. You know, our thought is faster than light. Our mind is more powerful than time itself. We have the ability to see past, present, and future all in the same singular moment we call the now, and that is the gift. It is the gift of our existence. It is the reason why you can go to someone who's highly sensitive and they can predict with a fair degree of accuracy a perceived future. And even though the future is always fluid, certain energies present today can lead to certain vibrational states which will appear later. And that is one of the possibilities should you continue going in the same direction you are. And since we're on the topic, we're going to add this in as a little sideline about time, okay? So when we go to a psychic and we ask them about our future, we're not seeing our future, we're seeing one possible future should the circumstances and situations and energy vibrational states remain relatively static. And they can. We can get caught in loops with ourselves. But we at no time should ever accept the idea of a future that is set in stone. Because it both is set in stone and is not set in stone. And we're going to talk about that a little further on in the duality section. So again, there's probably going to be a lot of people who are going to develop headaches over this. You may want to have a Tylenol or two with you. I do apologize if I'm causing any brain drain. I'm trying to get you to look past that, to look deeper. Yeah, exactly, sweetie. You can't have 100% psychics because things are available to change. They are subject to change. We control the destiny even though we don't control the destiny. And again, that's for duality. So we've kind of dealt with time now. We understand that time is a arbitrary measurement. The fact that we've broken it up into these neat little units has no effect on time whatsoever. That is simply the things that we agree to live by consciously so we can have a sense of order down here. So we all know when to show up at the breakfast table. But that time is psychological. It only has to do with our state of mind. Time itself doesn't exist. What we would call time is flexible. It's malleable. It doesn't flow linearly. It simply is as it is, and we move through it. And we move through it according to our conscious states. So we are in highly rarefied conscious states, i.e., you're watching a magnificent sunset, a sunset like you've never seen before, and suddenly the sunset appears to take an hour. You're doing that. It's not the sunset. It's not that the watches don't stop ticking the seconds away. They do that independent of time. They use their own vibrational state to produce 1 tick per second. But that is not time. It is you that stretches time, that steps out of time and enjoys that sunset, that highly rarefied experience, whether it's a sunset, whether it's witnessing the birth of your own child, whether it's deep in meditation. Your concept of time belongs to you. Yes, we have to live under psychological time. We have to show up to work on time. We have to feed ourselves on a fairly regular schedule. We like to go to bed at a fairly regular time, especially if we have to get up in the morning. We schedule things. But these are all based around this. And this has nothing at all to do with time. And, okay, this stuff makes me giddy because I feel it and I see it outside of mind, outside of thought. So at the thought level, it just makes me overjoyed. It really does, because it just proves to me over and over and over again that we live in this wondrous, consciousness-filled universe that literally bends to our will. All the clocks in the world cannot stop me from experiencing an hour-long sunset if I choose. That's incredible to me. Boom! We're going to talk about E equals mc squared. And before we go, oh no, I don't want to get into any math today or physics sort of stuff. There's only one thing I want you to take away from this equation. What this equation really says is that mass and energy are totally interchangeable. That tiny bit of mass that was there at the beginning of the universe, less than 1% of the entire universe has mass. The rest of it's all energy. Everything we see. All this supposed mass is covered by 99% energetic space. And that mass is nothing more than a rougher vibration of that energy. And the constant, okay, so we have energy, which is the E, equals mass, but not just mass, but the energy within mass, the energy within something that we would say has weight to it, okay, it has a heaviness to it, that energy would be equal to the weight multiplied by the speed of light squared. And what we're really talking about, wait, say that again, about time or about the psychic? Just let me know which one and I'll verify for you, Kimberly, because the chat is a tiny bit behind, obviously, or I'm behind in the streaming, one of the two. So what this really means, E equals mc squared, is that in order for you to have the tiniest bit of mass, there has to be an enormous amount of energy inherent within that mass. The weight of the mass itself, let's say 1 ounce, multiplied by the speed of light squared, and then expressed in energy. This is why, and I hate to bring the point up, absolutely mass can be changed, and we will keep on with this. This is exactly what happens in a nuclear explosion, and I hate to bring up a nuclear explosion, okay, but it's not only humans who have been foolish enough to weaponize what happens inside of a star. And I have nothing good to say about the idea of nuclear weapons. Let's just be clear. But this is why a nuclear weapon is so powerful. You are taking a tiny, tiny mass of plutonium and a tiny, tiny mass of tritium or another accelerator, energetic, radioactive material. And when the two of them are shoved together at tremendous forces, they literally compact them by making a sphere and then surrounding the sphere in perfectly shaped charges that all blow in to compact that sphere very quickly. And what happens is there is a huge chain reaction as that mass is converted directly into energy. And that tiny ball, and the average nuclear weapon has a ball in it about the size of a softball, is able to do the devastation you see as far as the energy releases goes. And that's exactly what happens in the sun. The hydrogen is compressed under tremendous pressures as a mass particle and releases energy, which warms our planet. Everything is energy. Mass and energy are interchangeable. The Hadron Collider, you should really see the one on CERN, because the Hadron Collider is actually the Atlas experiment that I worked on, that is part of the CERN Collider. And when we talk about hadrons, what we're talking about is quarks. And because we can't see quarks directly, we look to hadrons, which are a whole bunch of stable quarks together. And it is yes, it is an example of it. You're taking two very tiny particles with almost no mass, and you're colliding them together at speeds approaching the speed of light. And that impact produces a tremendous flash of energy. And in that energy dispersion, depending on how high it gets in gigavolts, and right now we're sitting up around 127 billion electron volts as far as energy goes, and we get all these new particles. Mass and energy are interchangeable. And there is a deep spiritual truth in here which you can grasp and take home with you right now. And this is the point of energy equals mass times the constant, which is the speed of light, squared. You, thinking you have mass and are a being of mass, are actually a being of energy, of unfathomable energy. You know, the energy that a nuclear bomb releases with the amount of matter that's in it is small in comparison to the energy that this human body can release. We are an energetic being, and that energy is piled to such an extreme level in order for us to manifest this physical being, this mass being within this relative plane. The amount of, and we talk about energy, and ultimately what is underneath the energy? Well, underneath the energy is that observer, that sea of consciousness, that from which everything rises. And it's very true, Kimberly, energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed. No, hold on a second. What did I just say? I'm hoping one of you is just going to catch it right off the bat. We are not a being of mass. We are a being of energy. And energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed. What other proof do you need that you're immortal? What other proof do you need that you have never ceased to exist and you always will exist? Another boom moment. That's right, Kelly. Even when we go kaboom, you're not going to get rid of yourself. You can't be destroyed. You can only be transformed. And we are transformed over and over and over again. We are transformed in our growth here in this physical realm, starting as babies, and a level of consciousness that begins in the spiritual realm, goes to sleep in the physical realm, and has the opportunity, if not over one lifetime, over many transformations from life through death into consciousness and more life and the circle around and around in this glorious dance. I can't get rid of you. I would never want to get rid of any of you. Least of all you, sweetie. Could send you on a really long trip, though. So underneath this energy, we have something even greater than that energy, something that trumps them all. God, I shouldn't even say that word out loud. It's like summoning the devil. Oh, crap, there he is. Underneath that energy, we have at that source this sea of consciousness. And I just want you to imagine the raw power that our consciousness has in order to manifest energy within the physical realm, and then take that energy and amplify it to beyond that of a nuclear weapon in order to manifest a human presence, what we would call a human presence, a human being on the planet, something physical. We are gods. We are playing with power beyond imagination in every thought, in every word, in every deed. And Janet's here too. Hi, Janet. Nice to see you. The sea of consciousness, that observer of all, is the source of the energy. And as Kimberly so rightly hit the nail on the head, it cannot be destroyed, only transformed. That which you are, that which you truly are, the energy that is you, of which your body is a pale example. It's like that tiny ball of gray metal in that nuclear bomb. But what it is indeed is this blinding light, but not a light of destruction, a light of creation, a light of consciousness. And yes, in that consciousness we have represented Shiva the Destroyer, for example. Why? Because things must appear to be destroyed in the form of mass in order for the energy transformation to take place. We're going to move on a little further. We're going to talk about duality next. And, you know, this is another big one. We live in this relative world. We live in this duality-based universe. Please excuse me. I need a little sip once in a while. And in this duality-based universe, we have the ability to experience. Awesome. Great, Kimberly. I hope he enjoys it as well. I really do. And Carol is here too. Hi, Carol. Always love seeing you too, Carol. Oh, we've got a great crowd today. That's just awesome. And I do encourage you to watch the video again if you're having a little bit of trouble with it or if you haven't seen the whole thing. And please do pass it on if you find it helpful, because the job, of course, I don't want you paying any attention to the messenger, okay? I put my face on here because I have to. But I am one special person amongst 7.5 billion special people. Don't ever equate anything I say with, wow, Garhen's, oh, he's so special. No, I'm just like you. I am you, and you are me. We are all in this together. We all walk the same path. We all hold each other's hands. We all help each other over the bumps. It's the message. It's the power of the message, the hope, the faith, the joy that I wish to convey to you. And I do apologize if I, slip off every once in a while, because it is a long stream from way up here in Arctic Canada down there into the warmth of where YouTube is. And yes, energy moves through water. Drink up. Energy moves through everything. Energy is everything. And beneath that energy, at a deeper level, everything is that sea of consciousness. Everything is being manifested out of that sea of consciousness. We can think of consciousness as that particle we have yet to find. That next step in our evolution of understanding ourselves. That underneath that energy lies an even greater form of energy, and we call that consciousness itself. And it is what gave birth to this dualistic universe, and there's a very good reason for it. People say, well, why did we have to come here at all? If we're these immensely powerful spiritual beings and all we did is fall asleep, why did we have to bother? And there's a lot of really great reasons why, and I'm going to explain them all. And they come in on both sides of the screen here. So what we have in front of us is we have earth and we have heaven. We have the world of duality, the world of the physical, and we have the world of the absolute, of the beginning, where Before time, before the universe, there was and always would be that sea of consciousness. God, the Creator. Why was the world of duality needed? And here we go. We're gonna blow some minds again, okay? In order to have cold, you must have hot. Right? In order to have up, you must have down. In order to experience stillness, you must have movement. This is the gift of the dualistic relative universe we live in. It was necessary to create. And there's a very good reason why. When you are the absolute, when you are all that is, you lose a frame of reference. There's nothing to compare yourself to. So therefore, there is no knowing thyself. That's the gift. We're here to be able to consciously know ourselves. And through that creative sea of consciousness, that absolute being comes to know itself. Because as the absolute, there is nothing to compare it to. There is no way to know yourself without a comparison. In our dualistic world, you must be able to compare waking state to sleeping state. Consciousness awake, consciousness asleep. Cold, hot, up, down, depressed, happy, angry, fearful. They all have their diametric opposite, yin and yang, just as Kimberly said. Or actually, that was Veronica. Way to go, Veronica. Yin and yang. Right here in the picture. But you see in the duality, in the relative world, what's interesting, okay? In the duality, we have real versus not real, and we always try to cling to one of them. This is real, this is not real. This is right, this is wrong. This is cold, this is hot. This is young, this is old. This is a short period of time, this is a long period of time. They are all relative to the observer. Relative to how we perceive them, relative to our thoughts about them. And we need them. We need them to be able to express ourselves, to be able to know ourselves. We need to be able to see a comparison. We need to be able to reach outside and, yeah, it's still all inside, but it can appear to be outside. And see someone who behaves in a way that we wish not to behave. And thereby have that comparison. When you are the absolute, there is no way to know yourself because you are all that is. You see, in the realm of the absolute, cold and hot do not exist. Up and down do not exist. Good and bad do not exist. Time and space do not exist. Light and dark do not exist. Light and dark are products of the dualistic relative realm. And that's right. You wouldn't know light if you didn't experience dark. And here we come again to another profound truth. And I said last night that I was going to start releasing some of the myriad number of secrets I've got packed in my pockets for all of you. And as consciousness is rising, as I feel people are opening up and coming to greater understandings, we're going to keep kicking out these juicy little tidbits. So what did I just say? Without dark, there is no light. Without that relative world, without this duality, we don't know what it is to shine. How much more proof again do you need that indeed you are the creator seeking to become aware of itself? You see, God couldn't do it by itself, but it does do it by itself. And again, I can see people's heads just starting to boil. I know for the first couple of years Kelly and I were together, to see smoke coming out of her ears was a regular occurrence, actually. That absolute had no way to compare itself, no way to know itself. So it did the next best thing it could. It broke itself down into an innumerable, infinite number of parts. And in that one joyous moment of realization, exploded itself apart, forming this relative dualistic universe. And every single one of those shards of creation, every single tidbit, gradually succumbed to an agreed-upon sleep. A grand adventure without knowing that it is only an adventure. And in that sleep, every race within the universe, every plant, every planet, every particle, every beam of light, every cat, dog, tree, it doesn't matter what it is, all I know is that all of it is God looking back upon itself. I ain't gonna lie, my head is spinning. That's great, Kimberly. I tell you, because when your head gets spinning, that's literally when things begin to fly apart. And we really want that. We want to unmind people. We want to get people away from their thoughts, out of their minds, and into the vaster space of what they are. Energy equals consciousness. Our conscious attention on something lends it energy, feeds it, causes it to manifest. First, we have a thought. I would like to build a deck. And we envision the deck in our heads. And then we speak to our wives or our husbands or our friends about the deck. And then finally we begin to take actions. And in those actions we see it manifest in the physical world. In this same very way, we have, and this is why I always talk about, don't lend energy to that which you no longer wish to have in your life. Don't fight up. Don't give your conscious attention. Don't give that energy of your consciousness, that life-giving energy of consciousness, to that which you don't want to continue to live in your field of view. And we're not talking about people. Although in one way we are. Because if you have a particular person in your life who is always energetically dragging you down and pulling your energy levels down and making you feel less than you should, sooner or later you're going to have to let go of that. You're going to have to quit paying them conscious attention and change the focus of your consciousness. And again, the proof pops right into our space again here. That what the sea of consciousness is, it is the grand experiencer. It is that which experiences all things. It is us. It is looking through us. It is looking through the eyes of the plant, looking through the eyes of the dog, using the senses of the tree to experience itself, to give itself an experience of what it means to be the all. And it's glorious. What this means in our relative world, of course, in our world of duality, is that we are used to the idea that something is either true or it's a lie. And in fact, as with everything else, we have to come to understand that lies, truths, real, not real, good, bad, up, down, they're all one thing. They're all judgments. They're all judgments we make. You know, if we look back into Genesis, we talk about, in Genesis, it tries to relay this without relaying it, because of course it's been confused and twisted and changed from the original text. But when we went around naming things, what we're actually doing is we're judging. We become the creator, judge, jury, and actioner and executioner of our own existence, both as an individual being and a collective. And for today, I just want you to think about the concepts that you can actually have true and not true. That when you're up in space, you don't have a frame of reference. So up and down cease to matter. There's another vast piece of truth hidden in here, another tidbit to take home. And I don't think anyone saw this one. So I'm gonna smack everyone over the head with this one now too. For another boom moment. Everything you cling to, everything you fight about with others, everything you argue about, everything you display your dis-ease in regards to, or anything else, is all based, again, on your thoughts and your judgments about your thoughts. That was the profound gift. When that which is all, that sea of consciousness, God, manifested itself into an innumerable number of pieces to experience itself, it enabled each of those conscious beings that came into creation with all the power, all the energy, all the conscious creativity of that same single source. We are all those drops in the ocean. Individuated, unique, powerful, and all sharing the same ocean. You know, there's a lot of people out there that would say, you know, oh, I can't wait to get off this planet. I can't wait to go to the other side. And I've been there. And what you're really saying is I can't wait for the suffering to end. And I'm telling you here right now that the suffering can end for you right now, right this very second, right here on the video screen. Words are a gift, Kimberly. But words are empty. Words are an attempt to express experience. They attempt to express a state of being within us. When we go to someone and we say, I'm sad, what we're really doing is compacting an experience we're having that could not be put into words, and we're trying to fit it into a word. And if you go right back to the very first videos I've ever done, way back in January, and it's hard to believe it's only been since January because I'm running about 120 videos between the two YouTube channels and the extra ones on Facebook. Maybe more. I think it was 137 actually. But the bottom line is this. Words are labels, and labels are dangerous because they're subject to interpretation. They're subject to twisting. You see, the experience you have is unique. It will never be seen again in all of creation. Each of us, every person, every plant, every animal, everything manifest in this dualistic, relative universe, all of it is a one of a kind. Never to be seen again. Totally unique, with a totally unique point of view. Why would the sea of consciousness make multiple things that were going to view things the same way? Why would God manifest people who would all look at everything around them in exactly the same manner? How would you ever get to know yourself? God takes in the view, the sea of consciousness takes in the experience. And we are the vessel in which that experience is taken in the dualistic world and then transferred through our own unique viewpoint. So 100,000 people get in a car accident, God forbid, and many more have, not all at one time, obviously, but every single person is experiencing that car accident differently. Every single person is transmitting a different experience of that experience. And we cannot be destroyed. We can only be transformed, and we are here to experience. And when you begin to get in conscious alignment with that experiencer, with that higher being that you are, you begin to live a life of joy. And the suffering fades into the background because you understand that actually it's not you that suffers. It's this false concept of you that's suffering. The sea of consciousness has already dealt with all the suffering, already dealt with all the pain. Our perceptions are just that. They're perceptions. They have no basis in reality. And yes, I agree, they feel quite real. And when you have the perception that you've been raped, I am not saying that is not something to deal with and not something to be mortified at having happen. But what I am saying is that it is your thoughts and the way that you choose to view your thoughts which will garner what you take from that experience. And it is like this in all of life. What we choose to take. You see, that sea of consciousness has no expectation on you. God has no expectations on you. It doesn't even want you to experience because it knows you don't have a choice except to experience. And that sea of consciousness loves you in a love that is beyond and transcends all human understanding. And in that love, there is nothing that you could do to cause harm to what you are or what another is or what that sea of consciousness is. We instead decide when, in the myriad number of lives we experience, that we're going to wake up enough to start getting in alignment and become conscious creators. To use this relativistic and dualistic world to build and enhance things that we find beauty in. To do away with harming each other. To see the oneness in all beings. To become more and more godlike. That is our journey. And as I said in the beginning, that destiny is set in stone. You cannot escape what you are at your core of your being. You are never lost, never alone, never will be put out in the dark, and you always live in a state of divine grace. It is the false sense of you, that dualistic version, that covers that up. And we get so caught up in this dualistic illusion, we get caught up in the Maya, that we forget that indeed we live in the arms of the Absolute. Never to be harmed. Never to be lost. already saved, already forgiven, already sanctified, already holy. That's the state of our existence. That's it for today, folks. The flow has left me. And I only speak for as long as my higher self stays in the forefront and speaks out the truth that I have to say. Again, much love. Namaste to you all. Kelly and I love you so much. I mean, you are part of us. We are part of you. And I am not just speaking about the group members here, but I am speaking of our global community. The wholeness that we are. Look forward to many more videos. We'll be back online again tomorrow. And then, of course, we have 2 events on Sunday, and we'll be posting more about that. Much love. Namaste. And again, I hope this has done some good. Take care.